Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another special episode, a special episode of Let's Talk Fortitude. And what everybody doesn't know, I'm going to be totally transparent. We've been recording already for about 15, 20 minutes, and the recording button wasn't hit. That's me. I am the board man. So, hey, these guys, what is it Si says? If you can't laugh at yourself, you can't laugh at nobody.
Can't laugh. That's right. That's exactly it.
So, listen, everybody. Hey, So the last two testimonies that dropped on Let's Talk Fortitude, the latest one is Todd, and the one before that is Brent Achord. And I've asked these guys to come back on, and we're going to have a conversation. They can ask me anything. I can ask them anything. And our conversation that we were just into and we're just talking about was, how long we've really and truly been, when our conversions was, how long we've been walking with the Lord. Brent's been, surrendered since 2019. Todd was 2020. Mine was, mine was back in 1991, but I put myself in the desert for 20 years. So God broke me in the very first WFR men's retreat, and I can't remember. That was sometime in 22, correct? Was that 21 or 22? I know it was in the fall. No, it was spring. 2022 spring, wasn't it? Or 20? No, it was 21. Right. 20 anyway, whatever it was.
The first one?
Yeah.
21 spring.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So, but anyway, so we're just talking about, how we look back on our life now, and they talk about it in their testimony, but I was just telling them how when I look back on it, I can just see how God had his hand on my life before 1991. Even as a younger kid between then and 91. And I look back on it now and I know that God had to have his hand on my life or I wouldn't be here today. And then these two guys chimed in too. And Todd, you can take back over from there.
Oh yeah. I can definitely look at my life and see God's hand all over my life, protecting me when I didn't know I was being protected. And it's been, one of the things that didn't come out in my testimony, in addition to it, was during that time of being among the outcast kids, I became a suicide survivor. I did try to commit suicide, and God saved me. There's no doubt in my mind.
So Brent, when you look back, did something really stand out to you? I mean,
Yeah, I shared before, at 17 years old. I remember acknowledging, I'll call it, that Jesus was my Savior. But there was really no repentance. There was no, okay, God's in control. I'm giving you my life. I was still in control. And that's why, for me, and I know the subject has been debated, but surrendering my life to Jesus Christ, knowing full well he is my Lord and Savior in 2009, that's acknowledgement, accepting, and repentance, and a turn 180 degrees. Has it been perfect? Have I? Negative. But being filled with the Spirit, being Spirit-led, 2019 at 44 years old.
Man, discipleship is something that I've never really had in my life. I know where people have helped protect me. Mm-hmm. God put people in my life that if it hadn't been for them, I probably wouldn't be here today. But to actually say that I had somebody in my life that discipled me, the only one that I could probably name would be David Lewis. I used to work for David in West Virginia. He painted, we worked together, just me and him. Wonderful man of God. You talk about somebody who talk about worship. This dude was off the chain, man. But until I got to Whites Ferry Road now I sit back and I watch that community of men up there and what they mean to each other. Brent, since you've been since you've been going to these retreats, how do you see, I mean, and you can talk about the women too, men and women. What's your, what's your reaction, or what's your view, or, how are you seeing the discipleship thing playing out, and because revival's breaking out in Monroe. It's not just North Monroe. It's not just Whites Ferry Road, not just Christ Church, man. It's all over the place. It's out in Union Parish. Just heard about that the other day. So it's everywhere. But what's been your take, sitting back over the years, because you've been to several of these things for quite some time? How have you seen this play out in your mind?
Like I mentioned in the earlier episode, like, I think that has gotten so much stronger. To me, that's the piece, critical piece that I don't want to say we, but the people with the retreat ministry are getting right. On my retreat in 2019, there really wasn't discipleship after. Now, I was fortunate enough to be plugged into Buck Commander and had dudes in my life that were discipling me, but I don't remember discussing and having such a priority on discipleship until really the last couple of years. And I think the guys that have directed, all the guys that are involved, I mean, that's the key element that I think is sustaining and keeping it from being, a weekend high. I think that's gotten so much stronger.
Well,
one thing, Todd, I'm going to come to you because I'm going to tee you up right here, because I know. So the one thing that I've learned about Todd Langdon, and I didn't know this until we went and teamed together, and I was on all those Zoom calls for that retreat up there. This man is beloved in West Monroe, and now I see why. And but he talks about, I mean, he went up there and he said, I'm going to have dinner with this person, with that person, this person, that person. And then he talks about how somebody like a Paul Stevens mentors him from a distance. So you don't just have to be there in person. It can happen through a distance, correct?
It takes, and this is a key in that, is it takes intentionality to do it at a distance. It takes
intentionality.
It takes effort and intentionality to definitely do it at a distance, and it really brings the spirit focused in. All right, this is going on. Get to your people, get to the people who are mentoring you with this issue, and get it out. Let them pour into you. Let them point you to scripture to help guide you along. Because as soon as the devil knows he's got a foothold in, that's going to be his way in my experience so far. That's going to be his way to try to get in every time. And it's I went clear into that with the story of my wife and pouring grace out on our marriage and not walking away. So I mean, and since the retreat I was on, the follow-up discipleship has gotten deeper because they've made it public which of the Bible studies are Zoom ready and Zoom available. And that's increased. I've seen that number increase in how many are available via Zoom. And I've also seen some rooted classes that are now available that weren't available. And it just, God's working. Do you have to be intentional to seek it out? Absolutely. But you have to be intentional in person as well, in my opinion.
And look, I don't think we can stress the word discipleship enough, because it's not something that was thrown out. Hey, try this. Hey, this might work. Hey, this might be a good. No, we're coming, right? Like, he tells us to go, Like not, okay, schedule a mission trip and go disciples. As we go, make disciples. So what does that look like? At work, might be a gas station. It might be somebody you meet from Florida on a retreat. It might be, it might be somebody you're coaching. It might be a family member. As you go and make disciples. Like it can't be, let's do life and mix in some mentoring, some discipling. Like this has to be life. And he's given us the platforms, whether it's jobs or whether, whatever arena that is. And that's our mission field. I talked about sanctification, and over the last few years, understanding that, man, I just think that's a key part of it that sometimes gets overlooked or taken for granted.
Yeah, I'm with you, Brent and Todd both. It has to be intentional, and it can't be a fly by night thing. I think the world, and we've all talked about, especially Todd and I. I think the world of JJ, and Brent, you and I talked about on your podcast as well. But a guy that I failed to mention on here that I got to spend a lot of time with when I was up there for the Whites Ferry Road retreat to team is J.R. Fix. And here's the crazy thing. So J.R. used to teach, Todd. He used to teach that Wild at Heart. He used to teach men's groups with that. And then lo and behold, JJ sends me a book to listen to on the way back. And what is it? Wild at Heart. But yeah. So whenever, so I'm doing my best to get JR to come on. He sent me his testimony, and I already knew a lot of it. And he's definitely got a story to tell, and which we all do. And each individual story will affect somebody. That's like Hallie Dye had her aunt on from on the salt works today. Well, she didn't get, she wasn't, she was raised in a Christian home. She wasn't a terrible kid. She wasn't addicted to drugs and alcohol. But what that woman and her family went through, even as they walk, it was sort of like a Paul Stevens story. Her husband's diagnosed with cancer. They think he's dying. They go in, you have to go in and listen to it. But then they go and the doctor says, I don't know what to tell you, but cancer ain't there no more, Cat. He's healed. He's still here today. So, I mean, it's everybody's story will impact someone different. Yeah, that's like Brent, your testimony. You're going to be able to reach out to baseball players and people who relate, to your story and your background and your life. And Todd, somebody's going to relate to yours. Somebody's going to relate to mine in a military background or being a pastor or whatever. But if we don't tell our story, we can't help people.
No. Hey,
no.
Let me fill you in on a quick story of who J.R. Fix is. Okay. We met in about 17 or 18. He had, I don't remember the specific, but he came off his retreat and he started coming to Buck Commander. And one of those guys where you can just see the fruits of the Spirit. You could see the evidence of joy. I mean, just coming out of him. And got to know each other, friendly through Bible study, see each other at church. That's about it. Well, 2000, I think it was 2020. It was during COVID. I was going through divorce, financial struggle. My lawnmower broke, and didn't really, I was trying to sell the house. Didn't know if I wanted to fix the lawnmower. Didn't really need to because I didn't have spare money. So at that time, I was weeding an acre and a half as a mower. Like I would mow an acre and a half with a weed eater. Just,
Oh my gosh.
that's where it was, man. Then my air conditioning goes out. One of the units goes out. And I reach out to JR. That's, he's in that business. And he comes over, and while he's, in my air conditioner unit, he's discipling me. I mean, this is a summer. It's 180 degrees in Louisiana, and he's working on my motor or my air conditioning. Never shut up discipling.
That's JR.
Long story short, I got to replace the AC, and I'm not going to go into specifics, but basically at cost is what the man did. New air conditioner. We're walking back across the yard, and he goes, "Hey, bro, we need to look at your lawnmower." He said, "It looks like it's scalping your yard." And I said, "It is, but that's my weed eater, and I ain't, uneven with the weed eater." And he looked at me, stopped in his tracks. He said, "No, we ain't having that." So we go back around, and he wants to look at the lawnmower. While he's looking at the lawnmower, he gives me his test. Come to find out, we got to shoot the lawnmower. No good. But he said, "Hey, man, my wife, JR's wife, likes to mow. We just got a brand new zero turn. You can have mine." So not only God's design, how that, but he set up and used my air conditioner problem, my mower problem, my financial problems to have me spend the day with JR Fix. And just opened up his life and threw me a lifeline, gives me a lawnmower. I know that's small and insignificant maybe to some, but the gesture he made that day in the discipleship, I tell him I love him and hug him every time I see him.
Well,
I sent him a message today. Go ahead, Todd.
That goes to speak for every time I'm in person with any one of you men that's been pouring into me. I make sure it's well known that I love each of you, and I appreciate how much y'all do pour into me. It just like you said, it may seem insignificant to the outsider or even to y'all as speaking to me, but there's that love that's being poured in, and then teachings on the other from it.
That's right.
And I was looking up, and this was a clarification for myself, but also for anybody who may not have a definition. But sanctification is the ongoing work of the Holy Spirit in the hearts of believers. So for me to look up keywords that are repetitive and repeated, to know the definition of it really clears it in my head as to, all right, that's what they're talking about. It's been a part of my makeup since 2020 of walking this out and understanding the words that are used. And it also goes back to my dyslexia. I have to understand what an individual word is to associate it in a statement.
Yeah. Well, whenever I met JR, I was actually when I came up there for the retreat reunion at WFR, and I was staying there at the ranch, JJ, or at JJ's ranch, and went to church, went to life group. That's where I met JR for the very first time. Sat down beside him. He was there by us. So we go down to the Ouachita because Corey and Fitz are baptizing, even though the Ouachita is up at that time. It's flooding. It's up in the park. Well, they go down. They baptize in the floodwaters. They don't care where it's at. They're gonna dunk you, bro. It could be a mud hole on the side of the road. They don't care. We getting wet. And so after the baptism, I ran into JR. Next thing I know, man, he's just telling me, "Here's my number. And I said, well, I'll shoot you. He said, no, don't shoot me a text. I'm telling you, you call me. If you need to talk for any reason, you just call me.
Call.
And I was having some issues, and that praise God, that I've been delivered from. And he worked with me through it, man. And ever since, I mean, went out there and stayed. But I sent him a message. And here's something I want to tell people. If God puts somebody on your heart,
That's right.
and you're just out of the blue, you start thinking about somebody, and God puts them on your heart, there's something going on. So and I have had JR on my mind. And I know that he's been busy with the ranch out there because he's doing the HVAC stuff out at JJ's.
Yeah.
And he's got that on his mind, and then he's got his regular business customers on his line, and he picked up another big business, all their business he was telling me about. And so I just sent him a text this morning and just said, brother, and just told him, hey, I prayed for you today, and here's what I prayed for. And he sent me a message back, and he said, John, that means the world right now. And he just went on and said, man, it's just blowing apart right now. So whenever God puts somebody on your heart, and I do that, and Todd will tell you, I do that for him. And Brent, I want to do it for you too, but man, I know you're so busy, but I got to get over that.
That's right.
And so here's something else I want. Here's another direction I want to go, because Todd and I talked about this the other day. So Todd and I were talking, and I just said, okay, let's just pray about it. Well, my son called when we prayed. Well, my son called me the night or two before that, and I was in the bed, and he woke me up, and I got up and he said, Dad, I really need you. It's the one that has the production company. It's coming in with me in December. That's in Houston. He said, Dad, I need you to pray for us. We got this going on with the movie and the money and this and that. And I was trying to find a place in there where I could wake up and say, let's pray. Well, about that time, he pulled over to get gas, and his card wouldn't work. So I got to go inside. We never did call me back. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to miss that again. So when Todd called, or Todd and I were talking, and Todd said, hey, I need you to pray for me, over this. And I said, let's do it right now. And when we got done, I said, why is it so hard? Do you all run into that too? Do you find that? I mean, it's getting us out of our comfort zone, right? Am I the only one that deals with that? Am I normal or abnormal?
Again, community and the people you're around have impacted me in that way. And listen, I don't do it. I don't do it every time. When I feel that tug, and it's so easy to say, I'll pray for you, keep you in my prayers, but that is an area that has gotten better. And again, it goes back to what Todd said with intentionality. Because you miss opportunities to be a blessing, to receive a blessing in that moment. Absolutely. And then Chris Orell, we talked about it last time. He's had a huge impact on me in that way. No, we're not going to come off the phone and pray about it. We're going to pray about it right now. But I'm with you. Why is it
talking about bringing up Chris Orell? Chris Orell doesn't realize it, but he played a huge impact on the retreat where I went. The first retreat I served on. The things that I was presenting, he kind of stepped through and guided me in several aspects of how to present it. And it left me at a point where, you know what? Yeah, I've done this nice, neat little write-up, but let's go from the heart. Whatever the Spirit has for me, it'll give it to me in that moment. And it actually made me face the things that was going on in my own life right there in front of everybody at the retreat. And then get home and face it head on, face to face with my wife, who you brought it up, Brent, she poured out grace so tremendously. Is it going to happen every time? No, it's not going to happen every time. But when you're walking intentional, just like I have a wife that's walking intentional, that is a result of the Spirit. And to say, oh, I'll pray for you, it's getting better. It's not where it needs to be, but it's getting better.
Yeah. And another quick story. My wife and I have been doing some recovery work, and Randall Greer got us, going out on Sunday mornings, maybe, I don't know, once a month. And we go share a message, testimony, whatever God lays out, right? Last 2 Sundays ago, we go, and it had been on me to be more urgent, have more of a sense of urgency, and not just share my story. So first thing out of my mouth was, if you go to sleep tonight and don't wake up tomorrow, you know where you will be. Do you know with 100% certainty that you're going to be with the Lord? And before I could say the Lord, one young lady said, I don't. I said, I tell you what, in a few minutes, we're going to pray and we're going to take care of that today. And we go, we give a message. 30 minutes later, she comes up and she's in tears. We sit down. My wife's on one side of her and I'm in front and other people are here. And I said, listen, I want you to talk to God. I want you to just have a conversation. Tell him, she said, I can't. She said, I just don't think he'll hear me. I've been in prison. I've been in rehab. I've got, an infant that is in state's custody. And that which led to, talking about you're not condemned, you're worthy, you're wonderful, beautifully made. Just a little bit of a message. But I said, I tell you what, I'm going to pray. And when I get done, I'd love for you to just cry out to God. So we pray over, we get done, I tap her on the leg, and boys, she let out a 3, 4, 5-minute prayer that was more eloquent and well said than any prayer that's come out of my mouth, and just cried out to God. And in that moment, everybody's crying, we're all crying, and I'm going, there again, what little faith.
But God, yep.
God, he'll give you the words. So when we run up on somebody saying, hey, go pray with them, he's going to give you the words. Just powerful, man. And listen, we talk about it like you're the one that gets just as much of the blessing. You don't do it for that, but you come out of it after any. Have you ever prayed with somebody and come out in the worst mood than before you prayed?
No.
Never.
No.
Absolutely
I can't
not.
say that one. That's a great point.
Well, it took going up there twice now to serve as on the team, but it took realizing that intentionality. Because when I first went back and served, I was part of the team, but I seen everybody with this such intense focus, and I was like, you know what? I'll come back to them and talk to them when it doesn't seem so focused, when they're not so intent on a circumstance. The second time, Brent, you got a firsthand example of, hey, come here. Let me talk to you. Let me tell you what's going on. Let me lay this out for you. I did that several times on that, and not only was it a blessing for myself to bestow, but it was a blessing on the other side received.
Absolutely.
And it's when he moves, it's just tremendous. And it's amazing to watch it. It's amazing to observe it, be involved in it. But then to bring it back to your own home and involve it with your spouse, your kids, the ones you work with, strangers. I have had several instances at gas stations where they see the gospel symbol tattoo I have on my arm, and they ask, well, what is that? That's my opportunity. That's why I put it on my arm, for them to see it and say, what is that? At least they get a gospel explanation. After that, God's going to take care of it and water it. The seed's been planted. Now, is that a wrong way to look at it? Is that a healthy way to look at it? It starts with curiosity, and it moves from there. It started with curiosity with me, and where it has went has been just beyond comprehension.
Brent, when was the first time, you said you and your wife do that, that Randall's got y'all doing it. When was the first time that you and your wife went out and teamed together to do outreach, or to share your story, or to minister to others? And I'm going somewhere. And
You sure
what, and I'm sure that at first it was probably a little bit of a struggle there, but what does that mean to you now? And as you look back on it, can you, just kind of give us a little bit of a history about how you guys have grown and how you all have come to work together as a team?
Well, let me take you back to 2019, and I don't mean to get in a long story, but just
no, you're good. You're good.
an important
you're
piece
good.
in the last 4 years. Like I said, I had been divorced, and she also, and girl that cuts her hair is a friend of a mutual friend. He kind of introduced us. We messaged each other, talk on the phone, and the first time I talked to her, just being goofy, she throws out, she says, if your house is on fire, what three things are going back in to get? And I said, well, that's it. And before I said it, I said, God, I'm fixing to be honest. And if she runs, so be it. But I'm going to lay it all out right now. I said, the Bible, my dog tags, and my 24-hour chip. Dead. Dead stop. My 24-hour chip, that was the monster. I didn't think I could take a day. So I hold on to that one as but anyway, dead silence. And all of a sudden I hear tears. And she said the same, my Bible, chip, and I don't remember what the other one was, but when I heard chip, I said, you got to be. So he took two people who were recovering addicts, who understood each other, who have been through divorce, who have kids, have gone through addiction and come out of the other side thanks to God's grace, and introduced them. So that, I don't know. I can't explain that other than I'm grateful for her and just the encouragement, the understanding, the support, it's incredible. And I'm going to tell, her story, but just, I guess it was a year ago. It was the first time we went out to this, and I'd had the opportunity at some point in 2022 on one of the retreats, testimony, had the opportunity, was fortunate for her to be able to come and hear live and in person. So that meant a lot to me. She knows the story. She's been with me since my retreat. But to be able to say it in front of her, and then to get the opportunity, I guess last November was the first time. And she doesn't say a whole lot. She's not the person that we're praying about it. And she has such a powerful testimony that she doesn't want to stand in front of people and tell that, right now. But she's the person in the back praying with these women, hugging them, you know, letting them open up. And she one-on-one shares her story, and one-on-one disciples. And I just can't tell you the blessing to be able to do that with her. Not a coincidence.
No, by no means.
I mean, no screenwriter can write that. Like, you take two people with similar paths, similar times in their life, and then he's using our problems, our old problems, to help other people.
To go forward with. Yes.
Go forward with.
The similar in mine and Mandy's life. I was right up front with her about my past, and still at the time we met was doing the classes on domestic violence and anger management. And I made it clear to the person who introduced us, I said, tell her this up front. Little did I know, on her side of things, she was coming from 2 failed marriages where one was a physical abusive marriage and one was a mental abusive marriage. And she heard that and she completely laughed. She said, are you kidding me? This guy's making corrections and he's sober. He's making an issue. It was part of a life of intentional, but even before surrendering, even before being baptized, God was already moving, and I didn't know it. Back to that side of it. So it's just another example of that. You can't make it up. You can't make it up. God makes those appointments in perfect timing and in matches that strengthen each other to walk forward.
For his glory, right?
Entirely.
So that he and look, we both have a heart for the recovery ministry because we've been there. It's personal. Well, I love WFR because when they say all people, they put their arms around all people. And the community of people involved and the recovery ministry as a whole, because I've been there. And I know that darkness of no hope, the shame and the guilt. And when you're at the end of your rope, and there's only one thing you can do. A lot of those men and women are at a place where they are ready, they're broken, and they are ready. And it's just an awesome thing to be able to experience, to witness, to be involved with. We have a heart for it. And look,
go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I mean, it's why whenever we get that call, the only thing I've asked is, hey, when we have our girls, we're going to go to church with them. Any other day, we're there. Just because we feel like what he's leading us and what he designed, and it's just 2 people with a past that can relate. That's all it is. 2 people that were in a mess. Now he's using that message. Look, there's been several that come to the Lord. There's been several that prayed and cried out to God, and then something happens. They don't stay in the program, and they perform again. And I struggle because there's 3 or 4 specific men and women that you've been able to pray that prayer, lead them to the cross, and then something happens. You never hear from them, or they leave the program. And it tears you up. And like several guys have said, man, I realize that's not our job. That we're supposed to grow the seed, right? We're going to keep growing the seed and keep praying for fertile ground.
That's right. That's right. Some of my fondest memories is whenever my wife and I were, we weren't pastoring yet. It was before we ever pastored, but as all the things that we did together, visitation, whether it was, newcomers, people who had come to the church to visit, and then we would go out on visitation to meet them. That's back when you had to print out Yahoo Maps to find somebody back in those days, and half the time the map wasn't correct, and you found yourself in the wrong place or someone where it's supposed to be, or you just had to break out the old atlas map and try to figure it out, But it's amazing the blessing that you get out of that when you do it as husband and wife, as a team working together, because then your spirit and your heart is connected in the same place. And there's something really special about that.
But that goes back to
that for granted.
Brent, I know you'll probably know where I'm going with this, but there's a quote about it's cord of three strands is always stronger, and you and her and Jesus at the core, it's unbreakable. And anytime you can work together for his commonality, for his goal, his glory, without a doubt, it's going to move. It's going to be awesome to watch. Awe-inspiring is the better word.
Yeah.
Being in the Navy, when we tie up ships, you got to be careful, man, because when you're leaving and that ship's pulling away from the boat, if they don't slack out that mooring line as you're leaving, that mooring line will start. I mean, you'll take a 4 or 6 inch mooring line that is made out of synthetic nylon rope, and it's some of it's braided now, but back in the day it was all 3-strand, and you just watch it decrease. And because it's getting tighter and tighter. And eventually, they have snapped, but there's not a great deal of that. But it just goes to show how strong those 3 strands are. You take one of those 3 strands out, and that thing snapped long ago. So it reminds me of what you can withstand as a family as long as you keep God as one of your 3 strands. That you may get tight. You're not always going to be relaxed.
No.
But when you get put under tension, you know that you've got somebody that's going to keep you from snapping, that there's strength in that. And that's good, Todd. I'm glad you brought that up. Man, I tell you, when I was praying this morning, Brent, I was gonna go back, but you were on a roll, bro. I didn't want to say anything. But I was praying about a situation, and I'm like, God, you gotta teach me what you gotta tell me what to say. You've got to say it through me. I can't say it. And there's something I'm dealing with, and I keep trying to figure out what to do in the situation. And then I'm reminded of when Christ sent in the Gospels, if I'm not mistaken, please forgive me, Lord, if I'm wrong, but it talks about how Christ says, don't worry about what to say. I'm going to tell you what to say. I'm going to give you the words. And so when you stand before him, you don't have to worry about it. I'll speak through you. You just got to go. And so I know that I've just got to take that leap, and man, it's hard for me to step out. Do you guys, I mean, is there points? That's like, I know, Todd, Mandy was telling me about whenever you were at the gas station and how you took that dude over. She sent me a text message while you were walking him over. She said, my heart's just overflowing. I'm sitting there watching my husband take a guy into McDonald's or somewhere to get him something to eat, and Brent, as much as you travel, you know, have you, and the dealings you've had, have you guys got into that place where you finally come to that point where God, you've got to give me the words. When I open my mouth, you've got to talk, not me.
We don't have enough times for me to tell you the fact. Times I was too scared. Times I had fear and wouldn't step out in faith because of what you just talked about. But a quick, a year ago, 14 years ago, I pull in an office in rural Louisiana, rural. And I see a minivan, both doors pulled back, and all I see is a black elderly lady, looked like she was putting something in the back seat. Well, as I get closer, I can hear the worship blaring loud. And this is August in Louisiana, okay? So it's 100 plus degrees. She singing and praising God. And I said, how awesome is that? Well, I go in, make a call, and when I put my hand on the door to come out, I felt him say, go pray with her. And I hesitated. Me? Like, and think to myself, me? Go pray with her. And I walked over there as nervous as I could be. I said, ma'am, I don't mean to scare you. I said, but I wanted to let you know that it's 180 degrees. You're sitting out in the heat, and you're praising and worshiping, and how much it impacted me and what a blessing that is. You just are don't get joy. And she breaks down, oh, baby, thank you. We pray. And I said, now, is there anything I can do for you? She said, well, just the air conditioning hasn't worked in my van. She has no air conditioning in Louisiana in her vehicle. One grandbaby was in the doctor's office. The other infant was in the car seat. She was straight and in the back. I left. I said, man, give me your number. And I said, I know people. I said, not Brent, but I know some dudes. So I put a message out on the group meeting, and within an hour, at $3,000.
Wow.
To pay for her a new air conditioner. I got the blessing. Look, 99% of the people gave more money than me. But I got the blessing to go take that to her and just tell her how much impact she had on me. No. Air conditioning, but the blessing I got from seeing her just point blank, not letting her circumstances joy. And there was one time that I didn't let fear overcome and trusted God and stepped out. And guess what? I've missed opportunities. So it ain't like it's every time, but like that's one story of, and it's all going to be. Think about. I always go back to Achord gas station story. How powerful was that? You know, we have to get over the awkwardness, get over the fear, because it's worth it, and we owe that to him.
Well, here's a question I'll answer that with. After you do it that first initial time, how much easier does it get after that?
A lot.
To continue stepping. Once you swallow that fear, that anxiety of, well, what if I mess up the prayer? What if I stumble through the words? No, he gives you the words, just like you said. You say them out loud to another human being, and then he just runs with it. Because as you mentioned, Randall Greer gave me a charge, unbelievable, to be an obedient servant. Well, that obedient servant's going to get out of the way and follow, let the Spirit lead him or her, whomever it is, and do those things that make you uncomfortable to where his glory is made known to anybody around you, any situation, regardless of how much you're uncomfortable. And that's one thing I've enjoyed so far. One of the biggest enjoyments I have had out of this walk is stepping out in that uncomfort. Do I need to do it more often?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Where does that fear come from? We know where it don't come from, right, John?
That fear comes from the one and only place, and that's the devil himself. The devil is a liar.
He does not give the spirit of fear.
Yep, 2 Timothy 1:7. That's my verse. I've lived my whole life in fear. Well, before now, I don't do it anymore. I'm like Larry Bowles now. I think I'm going to become a suicidal resurrectionist. That's what Larry calls it. He said, "I'm ready. I'm ready. Let's go. You know, I'm not going to be afraid." He said, people pray for our safety over here. I tell them, don't pray for that. Something happens, I'm in heaven. I ain't worried about it.
I don't want people mourning.
No,
because I trade places when that day.
Rejoice like you've never rejoiced before, because I guarantee I know where I'll be. I know where any one of the three of us will be.
That's right.
Just from the limited time I've spent with each one of you, there's no mistaking where we will be, and what a day it'll be. Look,
man, I want to take. I meant to do this earlier when we first started. I know I did the first time we started recording, but I just want everybody to know how much I appreciate the two of you all, what you all have meant with this podcast. I mean, to the, Brent, I mean, the contacts that you've given me, the encouragement that I got from you from the time I reached out to you, or Todd reached out to you, and the time, from that time, the encouragement that you've given me to keep going and sharing the stories and the reactions of your testimony of your episode. Man, I can't thank you enough. And Todd, whenever I call you or I text you and tell you everything that's going on with the podcast, you tell me that you and Amanda are in tears. Tears of joy, not happiness or not sadness, because of how you've been praying for the podcast. And it took me to the point to where I had to give the podcast over to him and over to God and say, Father, this is yours, man. It ain't mine. I can't do this. I can't work on the other side and on my side too. So if I go to invite somebody, you can work on the other side. I can make the invitation, but you're the one that works on the other side. You know who you want to have on your podcast. And we're going to leave it, and I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to sweat it. I'm not going to fret, because I did, man. For a long time, I'm like, why won't nobody answer me? Why won't nobody come on? Well, that's because it was all about John Garrett. It wasn't about the Heavenly Father. And, man, to tell your all stories and see the people that have been blessed just from your all stories, that doesn't include everyone else's that's been on here. So, man, I tell you, I can't wait to get back into Monroe. And I don't know if you know this, Brent, but I think Todd's coming.
Outstanding.
That's correct. That's correct.
Before we finish with that, I want to turn it around for a second. Okay? I want you to answer. You talk about that fear. When was the moment that you heard God to do this podcast? Because, brother, it's a platform He's given you to glorify Him, and seeing what you've done through this and through technology, just getting people's stories out and glorifying our Father. When did you answer that call? When did you know?
So right after I had my knee surgery and I'd found WFR live stream and now listen, there's other ones that I watched. Marcus Luttrell with Never Quit, Sean Ryan with Vigilance Elite, Dave Rutherford. They were 90% Navy SEALs, and it was all about mindset. And because of where I was coming, God was convicting me at that time. And I started doing lawn care videos. And so lo and behold, God broke me. My wife and I had taken 4 days to do some lawn care work in the back of our yard at our forever home that we had just built there in Charlotte that we had saved. And man, it was a beautiful home. Second day, I had her crying in the backyard. I was managing a store for the company I still work for. And I had but it wasn't just the company. And I don't want that to blame. If people know where I work, I don't want them to think that my company did that. It wasn't. It was me. I allowed myself to get in that state of mind and my spirit to get in that state. But when she looked up at me in the backyard on that second day and had tears just rolling down her face and said, "Why are you so mean to me?" I broke. I mean, it was, and I tell everybody, it wasn't a clean break with a dry twig. It was like God said, "Go." My dad used to tell me, "Go get a switch, and it better not be a small one." So I'd go. It's like God said, "Go get your switch," and so he took that. It's like a green sapling, and when it broke, it wasn't a clean break. You know how it splinters, and you can't really try to twist it and get it apart, and then you've got all the green sap and ooze and going everywhere. Well, that was me. It wasn't a clean break. I mean, brother, he was twisting me and shredding me, and just so lo and behold, man. I mean, I was broken at that point. So I had also found the Unashamed podcast at that time, and the WFR men's retreat came on with Al and Phil, and I'm going to get back to the podcast. So at that time, when I started watching that, I just felt like, man, I don't want to do lawn care videos anymore. I still felt like I had a call on my life, which I think we all do. And we all have a call on our life, a ministry of some sort. We all have it. If you're a child of God, we're all charged to go and spread the gospel. And so at that time, I said, man, how many times can I make a lawn care video of showing somebody how to cut their grass? I mean, come on. So if you go back and look, there's a couple on there that I've done with the shelter hole. It was called the rear view mirror. Like how and my whole life I've spent looking in my past, in the rear view mirror at my past, and the front windshield is all blurred out because I can't see my future or what's ahead of me for looking at my past. I did one for coming out of the desert, but I felt like I wanted to tell a story. I wanted to tell my story. I wanted to give encouragement to people who might be dealing with the same thing that I had dealt with. Well, about that time, I came down to the retreat, and I thought I was coming to the retreat to get vision for the podcast. I'll be honest with you. That's really why I thought I was coming. But what God revealed to me while I was there was, John, you didn't quit me. You didn't quit the church. I got you out of there. And that changed my life. And at that point, I started doing the podcast. I knew what I wanted to do. But there come a point, what was it, Todd? Did I tell you? It was when Larry Bowles' first episode that's on here. So I had already done JJ and Corey and Fitz and Andy and all those guys. I had already recorded with them. Mm-hmm. But there come a point where it was like it had dried up. God's hand was off of it, and it wasn't going anywhere, and I was just kicking against a stone. So I prayed. I said, God, I was at my wit's end. And I had sent Larry Bowles an email and asked him if he'd come on. Oh, yeah, John, here's my email. Here's my phone number. Reach out. And we talked on the phone for an hour one day. So
that was like June of this year.
So about a month and a half later, well, yeah, it wasn't far before the retreat, Todd, because that's right about the retreat times when I released his episode. So month month and a half went by. I reached out to him. Month and a half went by, and I'm like, man, I'm done. I can't. So I was praying one morning. I said, God, I'm done. I can't do this. If you want me to do this, you've got to do it. You've got to take this and you've got to run with it. I can't do it anymore because I can't get anybody on here. If you want people on my podcast, you got to put them on. I quit praying that morning, and I kid you not, Brent, I walked to my desk. I had left my phone on my desk there in my office. I flipped the phone over, and there's an email from Larry Bowles. John, I am so sorry that I have not responded to you. So when I called him and talked to him, I said, Larry, I said, I want you to know God used you. And he said, what do you mean? I said, he made you wait. He had you to wait a month and a half to get me on my knees to turn this podcast over to him before he would let you call me. And the minute that I did that, you called me. John, I'm so sorry. I said, no, Larry, you got to understand. God did this. And so anyway, ever since that time, Todd's come on board and been praying with it. And he and I mean, we've met just right about that same time, and all that's come to light. You've come into this, and just the encouragement that I've gotten out of it, brother, it's incredible. It really is. And I whenever I started this live stream, so Chad is our youngest. It's his production company. Forerunner Productions is his production company, and he didn't like it. He's probably not gonna like me telling this story, but he wasn't real happy that I started doing these remotely. But he got married, and he's got a life of his own. He can't follow me all over the country to try to shoot in person because that takes two people, sometimes three. So when I did this, he wasn't real happy about it. But now he told me the other day, he said, Dad, I really like what you're doing. You had the right idea. He said, I appreciate it. And but you guys, just so you know, both of you, God has used you in a mighty way through this podcast, not just to tell your story, but to be a huge encouragement to me. And Brent, I mean, I know you're in Monroe, Louisiana. Todd, you're at Lake Okeechobee, or right at Lake Okeechobee. But I feel like you're right here, right now. And I know that if anytime I need to pick up the phone and call, you guys are going to answer. And that's my whole prayer. And when we roll in there, in the second week of December, it's all about the Heavenly Father. It's all about giving him glory and telling people's story to be encouraged. And I'm just going to tell people. So I'm doing a series. It's called it's a pastoral view on influence and impact. It was inspired by a podcast I listened to from Brian Sexton on the Intentional Encourager podcast. And Brian's not even recording for those now. He's been kind of incognito. He's taken a break for about a year. So through that, I have reached out and been able to record remotely with Dr. Jeff Garrett in Huntington, West Virginia. He has his doctorate in counseling. He is a professor in the Marshall University graduate program for counseling. Dr. Bill Dye, that has his doctorate in theology from Dallas Theological Seminary. Jarrett Fix, JR's son, also has his doctorate from Dallas Theological. He's on. I'm recording with Todd's pastor in a couple of weeks, or maybe next week. A guy I graduated with that pastors a church in Iowa real close to an Indian reservation, I believe. Larry Bowles has participated in it, and I'm just going to tell everybody, Gordon Dasher participated. Gordon will lead off in 2 weeks, a week from this coming Monday. When you hear this, the following Monday, that series will drop with Gordon Dasher, and 90% of that, we talk about Jan Robertson Dasher, Phil Robertson's sister, who is portrayed in the movie as pretty much being the one who was responsible, that did not give up on her brother, Phil Robertson, and for him coming to the Lord. It's an amazing interview. It's an amazing story, and it's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And Gordon is an amazing somebody. And to listen to his story of him and Jan, it'll I tell you what, if if you come out of there with dry eyes or your heart not really being squeezed, there's need to get a heart check. But I'm so thankful, and you guys are part of that, man. I'm telling you, Brent, you may not even realize it, but you've been a huge part of Todd. You and Amanda, you know where you guys are, man. And here's the other thing, Brent, that nobody knows. So my wife, she doesn't get out a lot. I mean, I love her. She's a homebody, and there's nothing wrong with that. I love it. She and I both, we're kind of hermits. We don't get out and do a whole lot. So I could, I talked to her and I said, hey, let's, Todd and Amanda want to have dinner with us. Let's drive down to, Port Charlotte, get together. And I'm going to tell you what, man, it was a great visit. I just wish my back hadn't been killing me, but it was a great visit. And so just to see how God works and not only increasing and building my community, now I feel like maybe he's starting to do that with us collectively as husband and wife. So I'm excited, brother. I'm on cloud nine. Well, but here's what I'll tell you. If God would say, John, this episode you're shooting right now is your last one, I'd say, that's cool, because I ain't doing it without you.
Hey, how neat is it that you just spent time talking with Gordon Dexter about Jan? If it's not for Jan, I don't think us three are talking right now.
Nope, we're not.
I know.
Take that back, brother. And her being what, Todd? Intentional with her brother, being obedient to the Lord. Now think about what that one decision. Go see The Blind if y'all haven't. The Blind. It hit me like one man, because he had people praying for him. He had a sister, and how many people has it impacted? It's impacted people in Lake Okeechobee, North Carolina, Florida.
Well, here's one for you. It impacts all the way to Australia, because I had a friend of mine that was here he was here visiting and seen that same intentionality that me and Amanda had started walking in, lived out day after day for almost 3 months. He was baptized into the Lord. He said, I want all in on the same thing that you two have, because I see the change. I see the light. I see the love. Everything that y'all bought me a Bible, and I read in there love, grace, mercy. I see y'all living these things out. Well, he's now back in Australia being inspirations there. And it goes back to the impact. It goes back to that point. If that point doesn't happen, we don't have a conversation. I don't have a walk. It's
incredible.
One ripple goes worldwide.
Like Phil says, tell me a better story.
I ain't got it. I ain't found one. I ain't heard one.
I got the same story Phil's got. I'm sorry about everybody. I mean, we're just telling the same story in a different way, right?
Right.
It's the same story. It's just, in the book. It's just a different chapter. That's all. Hey, and listen, what we got to do is figure out a way to really get that. And I'm not doing it for me. I would really like to get that podcast out and shared with as many people as possible. Because
Gordon's,
because with the blind bit, that's why I moved his to the front, because I really didn't know where it was going to go, because we were talking about influence and impact. And man, when he started, I just told him, I said, there's no greater influence or impact story that I've got out here in this series than what we're talking about right now. So that's what we're leading with. And I thought, so I talked to Chad and I said, man, with the blind being out still one more week, and who knows, it may even get extended out again. I would really like for people to know who this Jan is that walked in with Bill Smith in that bar to try to save her, to save her brother. And she said it was 100. I asked Gordon, I said, what was it that she said? He said, if you can convert Phil, he'll lead 100 or hundreds to Christ. Well, and so I asked him, I said, I think I was telling you about this today, Todd, or somebody. Anyway, I said, Gordon, I said, I'm reminded of when I hear her story, because where she died of cancer about 3.5 years ago. I asked him, I said, did she live long enough, or was she alive long enough and know enough to be able to witness what Phil's conversion done and the impact that Christ has had through his conversion upon so many, probably millions, not hundreds of thousands. I'm thinking millions of people. He said, yes, she did. And I said, well, I'm reminded of Moses where, because Moses struck the rock and with his staff, and God said, you can look into the promised land, but you can't go in. So he took him up on the mountain and allowed Moses to look into the promised land. I kind of look at that like Jan, though that God didn't leave her here on the earth, for her to see the complete fulfillment of what Phil's life would be, because she was the baby. And but I said for him to be able to for her to be able to see that her prophecy, or how she prophesied over her brother, it would come to fruition. I said, to me that's really special. And I just want people to see who she really was as a person that really you don't get to know in the movie.
And it's as simple as she loved her brother enough that she told him about Jesus. And really, that's what we should all do, right? If you know what he's done for you, how can you sit on that story?
Well, it's just like I heard Larry Bowles say it, just this simple. How much do you have to hate somebody?
There you go.
To not tell them the gospel of Christ.
You're right.
That's
You're
it,
right.
Todd.
Hey, I got your message, bro. About it getting chaotic.
Look, let's not let this fall through the cracks in December.
What's
Absolutely
that?
Not.
In person.
No,
Yes.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think, I'd love to get the three of us to sit down. I would like to get with us. Now we can have, let's see, I can have 5, so we could get 2 more with us.
That won't be a problem.
So I don't know. I know,
Brent, I got one you can work on, and I know how busy the man is, and I understand if he can't. But Colin Dunn would be one of my choices.
Yes.
and I'm going to leave that up to you two, because I've listened. I've already worked on 3 other groups, and Brent, you're in one of those too. So, I did get a hold of Jeff McPherson. I tell you what, let's get out of here. Let's stop. We'll stop recording. Hey, listen, everybody, we're getting ready to just go on. We don't need to keep, y'all don't need to hear all this stuff. You two hang around. Hey, and before we get out of here, I do want to do this. Pay Chad a little bit of respect here. Hey, everybody, if you would, hey, before we get out of here, listen, you do not want to miss the upcoming episode with Gordon Dasher that'll be dropping in 2 weeks from when you're hearing this. Please get with your friends. If you've seen The Blind, you want to know who Jan Robertson Dasher is, Phil's younger sister, who was betrayed in the movie of going into the bar with Bill Smith, believing for her brother's salvation and just not giving up whatsoever. Please go on, like and subscribe. And when that comes out, let's get that out into as many hands as we can to do an honor to Jan, because just like Brent said, we're all 3 sitting here because of her. And if it had not have been for her, you wouldn't be watching this podcast. And so I really, to do that, please go like and subscribe. Leave us a comment. It really helps. And share the videos. There's a ton of stuff on there. Go back if you haven't looked at it or seen it. Go back and check out Todd and Brent's testimonies. They're awesome. Awesome. Hey, listen, forerunnerproductions.locals.com. If you want to help support the program or the podcast and become a member, you can go there. Chad has an avenue there that you can give to the podcast or give to Forerunner Productions, and it goes in to support Chad and everything that we do here. ForerunnerProductions.com is also a website. You can go there and learn more about Forerunner Productions and all that Chad does. Forerunner Productions on YouTube, and Let's Talk Fortitude on Spotify and iTunes. It's not Forerunner Productions on Spotify and iTunes anymore. You have to go to Let's Talk Fortitude on Spotify and iTunes, but it is Forerunner Productions on YouTube. I love YouTube better than anything. And
love you, man. Yeah.
You guys just hang on here a minute and we're going to get out of here.